This is real for me. I need this. This is a therapy for me.
Before we dive in, a quick but important note. We are not licensed mental health professionals or medical experts. The conversations that we have on this podcast are based on our personal experiences, thoughts, and opinions. Nothing shared here is intended to be taken as medical advice, a diagnosis, or a substitute for professional help. If you are struggling or need support, please reach out to a qualified mental health provider or medical professional. All right. So you guys know each other a little bit.
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's been a long time.
Been a minute, like 10 years.
Really?
Yeah.
No, seriously.
It probably has, yeah.
Holy crap. Okay, so you guys haven't seen each other in like 10 years.
Yeah.
How did you guys end up rekindling a little bit? Or like, how did you get over here?
Yeah, good question. Well, I moved here from Michigan to do music, and she shot like the first ever photo shoot for my project. And then, I don't know, we stayed Facebook friends, and we just chatted on and off about like film, real estate, all different kinds of things.
Okay.
Yeah. And then he saw the podcast posts and then offered to be on it.
Yeah.
And then I just like the other day like had 3 slots open for today, and you were like, "Let's do it."
Hell yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And from what I was told, the stuff that we wanted to talk about today is stuff that like I've been wanting to get into so bad. We did our first episode on your stuff with bipolar, but we haven't really hit too much on my stuff, which this kind of stuff definitely gets a lot more into with ADHD, possibly some OCD stuff, which I'm super excited for because we live in a society today. Everybody says they have ADHD.
Yeah.
Oh, my ADHD this or whatever. And I don't want to discount anyone by saying like, oh, you don't have ADHD. But at the same time, with how things are today, with like how they grab our attention, where our attention goes, all the dopamine stuff. When I was younger, I know that like my brother had ADHD, but I was never diagnosed with it because I didn't have the typical tendencies of ADHD, which is like the hyperactivity stuff, not being able to pay attention, and just being rambunctious, as some might say. But then as I kind of grew up, I got to learn a little bit more about like, okay, well, there's a lot more to ADHD than just not being able to pay attention, because hyperfixation happens with ADHD, which means you pay a lot of attention, but to a very specific thing.
Yeah.
I know you don't really know a whole lot about ADHD.
I don't. I just don't want to like act like I know anything about it because, like, again, everyone says that they have ADHD and they're like, "Oh, like I'm sporadic and I think about 1,000 things," and I'm like, "Okay, but I also do that too, and I'm not diagnosed, you know."
Yeah,
so like, I just don't know the difference between like someone self-diagnosing themselves and like me like saying I have ADHD too versus someone that actually is diagnosed and what you guys feel like every day.
Yeah.
You know. So if you guys can define it for me in like your own ways, and then like the clinical definition, that'd be awesome.
So while I'm pulling this up, I do want to hear from your mouth as someone diagnosed with ADHD, what your personal definition and possibly
like what is it to you?
Like what is it to you, and maybe your journey with being diagnosed with it?
Yeah, absolutely. So I would say, so from my understanding is essentially what it is a dopamine deficiency. So you don't necessarily get the dopamine rewards for doing certain things. So you'll find a lot of substance abuse issues with people with ADHD because they're trying to hit that dopamine baseline and stuff like that. Overeating, that's just continual self-soothing, that kind of thing. And so finding ways to essentially figure out how to function and kind of like game the system essentially. And so my journey's been very interesting because I got diagnosed with it at a pretty young age. And so it's like even now I'm still learning about, how do I function? How can I better live without necessarily, using certain methods to cope or that kind of thing. So yeah.
Okay.
That's how old were you when you got diagnosed?
So I was like 11.
Okay.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was pretty young, and so I ended up getting tested, and I also have dyslexia as well. And so I essentially got diagnosed with ADHD and dyslexia. And so, you know, back then, I mean, this was probably like early 2000s. I mean, it was very different then than it was now. So pretty much, you know, everything was just like, hey, let's just throw medications at like kids and everything. So I ended up getting on a pretty high dose of Adderall at like a very young age. And so that didn't necessarily have the, what do you call it? Didn't necessarily have the resources that there are other methods of, you know, dealing with ADHD and everything. And so there's a whole myriad of things that is not necessarily just medication, which is really cool.
I can't wait to learn about that. So what's your definition of it before you read that off?
Okay, so my personal definition is, at least like the way that I've learned about it, it's not necessarily an attention disorder. It's, like you said, the dopamine disorder. It's something to where you're always chasing the dopamine rush. You're always chasing the next source of dopamine. And so that's where a lot of the symptoms that aren't really originally classified as ADHD, I feel like come in. Like when I was a kid, I was pretty good with school. Like I didn't really have too much trouble paying attention to stuff. But it was also just because there was a lot of subjects that I was interested in, and I wasn't super rambunctious. I was like, okay, if I just sit here and sketch or something, I'm not gonna be bothering anyone. I'll just sit here and doodle on my own, or just do something to where like my attention wasn't going to that, or I would hyperfixate on like notes or something, like making sure everything was completely perfect, making sure that everything's super organized, not because of like the OCD, which I was later diagnosed with, but because it was just that thing to do. And like looking at it nice and pretty gave me that dopamine stuff.
Oh, interesting.
That's awesome.
That's the same for me though. So like I want to ask my psychiatrist if I have ADHD. I just want to test it because like I'm still organized and I have to do everything perfectly, and like I just think that like we just watched a reel from this guy that was explaining it, and he just said that like you're not being lazy, you just are like thinking to yourself like all the things you need to do, and you just don't do it because you're overwhelmed.
I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. There's actually a song by a rapper that I really like, really kind of going into it, and like he has some statistical stuff, and I don't know how accurate 100% of it is, but he was saying like majority of the diagnoses are with younger boys. Girls typically aren't really diagnosed with it, but it's because of the natural rambunctiousness that young boys have. So like my brother was diagnosed very early on because of the fact of how rambunctious, how active, and how much like he didn't really pay attention. And I don't know what the diagnosis process was for him. I just know that immediately he was given Adderall, and it was just a weird journey with that. The Adderall didn't even really work for him too much. But that's also where I think the adaptation of learning more about ADHD has come in, to where it's not just like a blanket of like, oh, your child can't sit still in class, so he has ADHD type of thing. And now there's further investigation as to like more of the possible things that like, okay, well maybe this is happening. We should look into ADHD as a possible thing, and then kind of go from there. But the clinical diagnosis from the National Institute of Mental Health says ADHD is a developmental disorder characterized by an ongoing pattern of one or more of the following symptoms: inattention, such as having difficulty paying attention, keeping on task, and staying organized; hyperactivity, such as often moving around; impulsivity, such as interrupting, intruding on others, or having trouble waiting on one's turn. That's kind of like the overall thing, which...
So it's definitely not me.
Well,
It's not me.
that's, I think, where a lot of the stigmatism behind ADHD comes from, because I don't know how old that kind of thing is, but that was kind of like the thing that I was taught ADHD looked like when I was younger. And it wasn't until later on I got to learn about like the depressive episodes behind it. The fact that like the more you learn about dopamine is the more you get to really understand all the other aspects, like ADHD paralysis and hyperfixation on something else. Because the way I learned about dopamine is it's a wave system. It's not a type of thing to where you just like get like a dose of dopamine and then you go back to base level. However, how you go up is how much you go below base level. So it's like a wave pool. You create the big waves, but then there's divots in between each individual wave. So that's why the stuff with substances comes in, and the stimulants. The stimulant comes in, we get dopamine, we're on fire. Oh yeah, everything's awesome. Or it doesn't even have to be necessarily external stimulants. It could just be literally just doing something, playing video games for 10 hours straight. We get the dopamine rush, but then afterwards we're like, well, now what type of thing? Now we're looking for the next thing. It's not necessarily we just have unlimited amounts of energy to do stuff. It's just like our brain's like, hey, dopamine, where is it? Where is it? I just got dopamine, but now I don't have it anymore.
I feel like I understand why people think that they have it, because I think that like half of that on a small spectrum is just like being a human being. Because like that's like boredom in a way. Like once you're done with something, then you're like, what do I do now?
Right.
You know? And so like, just like we were saying in our depression and addiction podcast of like, we all chase dopamine levels.
Right.
And like we all have like addiction issues and substance abuse issues and all that stuff, but like it's just on like a grander scale for you guys.
Right. And I think one of the other reasons why everyone says that they have it is because we live in such a stimulating world now.
Yeah.
With things like social media that is curated to release dopamine to keep you on the app.
Yeah.
With like especially in entrepreneurship, I see it a lot because we're always trying to chase that next high from business development or overachieving type of stuff. So we're always trying to chase that. For you though, I'm kind of curious where you see it happen the most, and maybe like how it affects things like work, personal life, and maybe how you're able to work around it in current times.
Yeah, really great question. So the big thing is doing tasks, which is funny because that makes the most sense. Figuring out what needs to be done and not getting too caught up in the hyperfixations and everything like that. And so biggest thing that I've seen is, like consistency. So one thing with like, spicy brain people is that essentially
I love that term.
is essentially like starting things, like getting really, really excited and then just like completely abandoning it.
Okay.
And so the biggest thing that I've learned for, like ADHD and everything is recognizing like my symptoms and being like, oh, okay, I'm like really hyper fixated on this. This is not nearly as important as it truly needs to be.
Okay.
So like measuring out exactly, home studio, like having like the perfect placement for all the acoustic treatment, or like the couch needs to be like square in the room and I'm just there fidgeting to make it more square, where it's like, doesn't matter, absolutely not. But does it matter to me? Absolutely.
That's feng shui. It's totally necessary.
Yeah. And so that's kind of how I've seen it, like at least the symptoms manifest in my life and everything. And so pretty much, up until this point, learning those symptoms and then finding ways to like counter that and be able to have them like the path of least resistance to success, if that makes sense.
Right. And so does that fluctuate? Do you have like episodes of it more so, or is it like an everyday thing?
Yeah, so it's pretty much an everyday thing. The thing that I've come to find out is the biggest thing to combat that are essentially taking care of yourself. So getting enough sleep, drinking enough water, exercise. Exercise is arguably the most important thing for like ADHD and everything.
Okay.
Making sure that occurs every single day, and then my symptoms are lessened, if that makes sense. Okay. And then there's also other, supplements you can take. Nicotine helps. Yeah. That's a new one that I found, which is both good and bad. But
whatever helps though.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all just a little increases that help out and everything.
Yeah, I definitely relate to a lot of that because I'll have different, I don't want to say attacks with it, but like that's one of the reasons why work can sometimes get to be a difficult task for me. I love what I do. Like it is like a dream type of thing for me. However, not all the time is every part of it a dopamine thing, and but it also leaves some of the other parts in life unattended to. Like I will be very organized in a certain way, but then you see my room and it looks disorganized. I know where everything is, but it looks like a complete mess, and it's because like my dopamine isn't saying you need to clean your room, you need to do the dishes, you need to do this. My dopamine is saying, hey, wouldn't it be cool if we add this effect into this video? Wouldn't it be cool if we did this? Which the exercise thing, that was kind of a newer discovery for me.
Yeah.
I hated going to the gym for the longest time. I was like, no, like that's just not for me. I don't care about being like a muscle guy or anything. But the balance of hormones that it starts doing and the natural release of things like dopamine and endorphins that going to the gym can do definitely helped a lot. One of the funny thing is, and I think it's one of the reasons why I wasn't really diagnosed at a very early age, is the effect of caffeine. My brother, when he was diagnosed, typically, I don't want to even say typically, but a lot of times with people with ADHD, things like caffeine have the opposite effect. It's not a stimulant for them. For some reason, there's a neuro type of thing that happens to where it's a depressant. So they can
Makes me sleepy.
Yeah, they can use it and go to sleep right afterwards, which for those who don't know, that's still not good.
Right.
You should not be taking caffeine before going to sleep, because even though you can fall asleep, the quality of your sleep is what's still going to suffer.
Right.
You don't have the right hormones being released during sleep. But for me, caffeine still worked. I was still able to get wired from caffeine and stuff, so it wasn't a typical type of thing. Now, it's not like, it still kind of keeps me up, but it doesn't wire me, but it's still like it has that kind of effect still. So that's why it's still like, okay, does caffeine still kind of have that ADHD type of effect? Does it not? I've been a nicotine addict most of my life, and that still like raises my heart rate, but it like still gives me a little bit of that calm and stuff. So those kind of stimulants are still a little bit on the iffy side. But yeah, it's kind of the pace of things is really what kind of, I mean, I'll wake up at 2 a.m. and have, for some reason, a weird amount of motivation and stay up till 4 or 5 a.m. getting a video done because I was just thinking about, like I said, a cool edit, and I can't stop thinking about it, so I need to get it done right then and there.
Yeah.
But then, like,
That's a good trait, I think.
it can be.
It can be.
Right? But then that's where procrastination happens.
Right.
And that's where the
You don't finish it, and then...
Yeah. Or like I just keep it on the back burner because that's not where my dopamine is going. And I'm like, oh, my dopamine is saying scrolling through TikTok right now is going to help.
Right.
And I'll end up getting stuck in that rabbit hole. And then they'll bring in the depressive episodes of like, I just wasted so much time. And then the opposite, like cortisol levels start rising. And then there's like a whole fluctuation.
Then you have to do it, but you don't want to.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
So I feel like it's one of those things to where it's not a blanketed thing. Kind of like how bipolar, yes, there's the typical symptoms that characterize bipolar.
Yeah.
But there's also the individual type of things that you might have that like maybe Nicole from a previous episode might not have, and vice versa, or my dad might not have. And it's kind of funny that now that we're talking about this, it's where I think the relation to OCD kind of comes in.
Yeah.
The difference between things like OCD and OCPD, because I'm not a doctor or anything, but I see a lot more of the relatedness to OCPD to ADHD. And from what I've learned about OCD versus OCPD is the satisfaction one. You're doing stuff for a certain satisfaction. So if you organize stuff in just the right way, it's because you want that satisfaction. When you do it, you look at it, you're satisfied. Dopamine hits, and you're like, okay, this looks good, this looks clean.
Roughly,
awesome.
you're just describing with the couch.
Yeah.
Right?
Absolutely.
OCD is the more intrusive one. So it's where the intrusive thoughts come in. It's where you still have the urge to do something, but once you satisfy that urge, it doesn't actually complete the urge. It grows the urge. And so that's why OCD is actually classified as one of the most intrusive diseases known to man. It's in the top, I think, 5, including cancer, because of how intrusive some of those things can be. So it could be like OCD would be, you can't turn left at all.
Right.
We don't know why. Like for me, I have certain words that I can't say. I have certain songs I can't listen to, certain shirts that I can't wear, certain things that like I can't explain exactly why I can't. But even if I don't do it, that doesn't mean I'm satisfied with not doing it.
Right.
I want to know what words you can't say.
Yeah, right.
You gotta say them.
Fuck.
Yeah. I mean,
So for a while, it was the word shit.
okay.
Really?
I would always think of something to say other than the word shit until exposure therapy kind of got that. Now, and
Is it just like the sound, or is it like
just the word.
just the word in
The
general?
word.
And it wasn't like if it was said to me, because I was talking to someone else with OCD, and they're like, so if I say this, then is that triggering you? And like for me, like punctuation, I'm sure you've kind of seen it with the way I text you. If I type it out, the only 2 punctuation marks that I can use is a comma and a question mark. Can't use exclamation marks, can't use periods, can't use
Really?
things
Wow.
like that. I don't, and like
Now that I think about it, you've never done that.
yeah. Well, and like the only way it will happen is if I'm using the talk to text and it just automatically populates the punctuation,
Wow.
and I just don't have time to go back and fix it, and then I just send it.
Do you have any theories as to why?
So the way that I've kind of looked at it, and the best way I've been able to explain it is superstition. It's a weird thing of like good and bad luck. If I do this, then bad things will happen. And that's where like a shirt. If I wear the shirt, I'm hyper fixated on possibly bad things that happen if I wear that shirt, so I won't ever wear that shirt. Even if I like the color, I like the fabric, I like everything about it,
Why don't you get rid of it?
because I think at
You
some
just wanna
point,
look at it every day and be like, I can't ever wear that shirt.
well, I think at some point, because a lot of times I've been able to get over it. I've been able to expose myself enough to just be like, you know what, that's the only clean shirt I have. I'd rather wear a clean shirt than come out with stains and smell all weird.
Right.
If bad shit happens, oh well. But there's sometimes like I can't. Like there's a French Montana song I can't listen to
Yeah.
because I associate it with bad stuff possibly.
Interesting.
There's nothing bad about the artist or the song.
Did something bad happen and that's why you think that way, or you just like think that?
I usually it's associated to like a bad event that did happen that day, and so like I associate that like I have a very specific routine for hygiene. The way I brush my teeth, I have to do the exact same order, and it's not like if I do it, I'm satisfied. It's just like if I don't do it, intrusive stuff like
Like you're not clean.
yeah. And
Whoa, I've never thought about that.
How big of an impact would you say that that's had on your life?
it used to be extremely bad. So I used to have, when I was younger, before I was like actually diagnosed, I actually have like a whole thing because Andrew Huberman, he's a professor of neurobiology and ophthalmology at Stanford School of Medicine. He has his own podcast where he goes into the science of all of it and really kind of doing research. And so I was looking at his, and there's different kinds of stuff. I should have pulled this up earlier, but now like I'm glad that I did. So the things that I was learning from him is, so it's 2.5 to 4% of people suffer with OCD. So it's not even like a big thing.
I mean, that's a lot of people.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of people, but it's not like when you hear everybody saying, I have OCD, that's why for me, I'm like, you don't have OCD, you probably have OCPD. Unless like I hear the symptoms like, okay, maybe it is. I can't diagnose it, but it sounds to me like it's a little bit more on the OCPD spectrum. But there's 3 types of compulsions that OCD people will typically have. There's a checking compulsion, which is where, say, that door, I know it's locked. I've locked it 10 times myself. I'll go back and I still don't feel like it's locked. And I'll just continuously do it over and over and over and over again. Or I'll have to go up and down the stairs a certain amount of times and still won't feel like it's enough. Or
Whoa.
so
I've never seen you like have these tendencies.
it's because I've been able to, through things like certain medications, therapies like exposure therapy, and then just learning how to cope with it, I've been able to mitigate and hide a lot of it. I still have all the thoughts. It's just I've been able to kind of get through it. Another one is obsessions, where you just obsess over certain things. I forgot exactly what that one was, So like repetition obsessions you might have, doing things exactly 3 times, doing things exactly 6 times, doing things a certain amount of times. Like I used to be that way with like door handles. I'd have to touch a door handle 3 times before I entered in. I'd have to click my pen 2 times before I used it. I'd have to breathe 2 times before I did something. And I'm so sorry with anyone else listening to this that has OCD. I know how triggering me even saying this stuff can be, because I was feeling the same way when I was hearing about OCD from another perspective. There was an episode of Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard, and he had an OCD specialist on. I highly recommend, if anyone is curious about OCD, to listen to that episode, because it will give so much clarity into the actual world of OCD. But then there's so checking, obsessions, and then I forgot to write down the other one, which that's gonna bother me too, but screw it. But like there's contamination. That was the third one, and that was the one I had really bad. To where I was washing my hands up to 200 or 300 times a day, because I just felt like it wasn't even germ contamination. It was related to psychological or sexual trauma in my past that gained into a fear of other sexual trauma. I won't get too much into it, but because of that, like I couldn't do things like touch my belt, touch anything around the crotch region, because of like a contamination. Even though like I know I'm a clean guy, there's nothing to contaminate. I would just always I would walk around with my hands up by my chest. Like I was one of my first jobs was as a host at a restaurant, and they would see me walking around like this all day. For those who are just listening, just like with my hands up, and I would consistently have to get all the silverware that I thought maybe I touched and just put it back in the dish pit, and just go back, wash my hands. And so that was a continuous thing that was like it was just a weird contamination thing that I had. But like some people are with germs, other people like OCD, that's why some people have to like separate food on a plate, because green peas might contaminate the white mashed potatoes, and there's like even down to the particle level some sort of contamination that might happen. So but that's why it's the intrusive one, because it doesn't let you live a normal life.
Right.
It wasn't until like I got into SSRIs that I was able to first finally get like the serotonin to kind of start getting at decent levels, and then through exposure therapy of just like, let it be, nothing bad's happening, bad things are going to happen in the world no matter what you do isn't going to cause, like, it would be intrusive thoughts like, if I do this, my mom's going to die, or if I touch that lamp the wrong way, then the world's going to end tomorrow type of, like it's like to the extreme.
Does that happen to you at that level, or do you think you have OCPD?
So in a way, yes. So big thing for me is like contamination. Like that's a huge one for me. So things being clean, it's mainly things that I like consume. That's a huge one. And then also like the checking, that's another one. That's, whether it's like, sensitive items that I've locked up or anything like that. I kind of wanted to, kind of circle around. Would you say that like the more OCD symptoms are more prevalent in your life than the ADHD symptoms, or what would you say?
Yes, but I think they kind of go hand in hand with that dopamine type of thing. But like, even people that are close to me, they don't really know I have OCD because I've become so good at hiding it. But every single day, I still have a lot of those things. Like I said, I still can't do certain things. I just know how to navigate my life to be able to avoid them, not on a suspicious level, but just like, if I'm in the car and I hear the song, I'll skip it. Or if I hear someone else playing it, I'll try to see if they can skip it. Otherwise, I'll just kind of close my ears or something. Or if there's a certain lyric in a song I can't say, I'll act like I forgot it or something, even though I know what it is. I just can't really say it. But that's also where the continuous exposure therapy kind of comes into, where I'm like, you know what? Just do it. Just do it.
Right.
But
So
And on the scale from like 1 to 10, like how, like it sounds like you've done like a lot of work to like overcome this. Like between like 1 to 10, how much like discomfort would you say that these symptoms cause on like a daily basis?
if I do something that goes into directly triggering it, like it's not as bad as it used to be. I used to, like, I remember specifically there was one day to where I was taking a shower and the order, I just couldn't get it right in the shower of washing. And I was literally in there for like 3 hours until the water was ice cold, screaming for my mom to come in to just be like, I just need some sort of affirmation that I can just leave. And she didn't really understand what was going on. She's like,
Right.
I need to get you on medication or something. And I was like, anything to help this go away. And so at that time, it was a lot worse. Now, it's still intrusive and still pretty dilapidating, but it's gotten to the point to where it's not to a point that I can't live my life. It's like the duration of distress has become a lot shorter. I'll still maybe have the same amount of distress, but I'm not hyper fixating on it for the rest of the day.
Right.
Like I would literally, like, if I didn't have access to wash my hands right then, I would just close my fists until the next time and literally operate just however many hours I needed to without washing my hands, without touching anything, and be able to do that. Now it's like I've gone through enough exposure therapy that I could just be like, you know what, I'll do it when I can, and hopefully I forget, because that's the good thing about like an anxiety disorder and stuff, is you forget pretty easily, or the ADHD kind of pops in. It's like, hey, I'm doing this, and then I just end up forgetting about it, which that's kind of helps, but it's still,
And so this is a lifelong disorder. Like, that's not curable.
I wouldn't say that.
Yeah.
No?
I mean,
You
I
can
think
do it?
you can
Manage it.
yeah, do what do they call it? Interventions, to whether that's exposure therapy or just cognitive, being cognizant of what sets it off, and then just being aware and everything like that. And so big thing for me and my experiences with contamination and stuff like that is, just kind of like labeling it and being like, this is something that is not necessarily going to affect me or whatever. It's super funny, because if I'm in the kitchen and I'm like cooking something and like a noodle falls out of like the pot and everything, my wife will just like take it and just like throw it right back in, and I just want to die. Like, that is it. But it's hilarious, because like in that context, like it's 10 out of 10, like it's horrible. But if I'm like hiking or something like that, and like I've been out for hours and I'm like gonna eat food, like obviously my hands are filthy, and it just does not bother me at all out there, which is super shocking, because it's, one's clearly cleaner than the other. And
I
so,
think if you don't work on it, then yes, it can probably be more of a lifelong thing. But if you continue to challenge yourself and continue to work on the exposure, like, it's not completely gone for me now, and I don't know if it ever will be completely gone for me, but it does get to a level of being able to live. There's probably, like, I have new things that come up, like something that used to be a tick for me isn't a tick anymore, but then I'll have a new thing, and so it's kind of like a regenerative thing sometimes. But I think continuously just working on the exposure, eventually you start realizing it's okay. And you can kind of start to mitigate that part of your brain a little bit.
Yeah, but is that just managing it though? Like, because bipolar, you can manage it and get it a little bit better, but it's never going to go away.
I guess that would be a little bit more managing.
yeah, I'd probably say more manageable than like a full-on cure. Probably.
Yeah.
I don't know if necessarily it's a curable thing.
Right.
You'd never have it again. I'm sure that there is probably people out there that have cured it completely. I haven't met anyone that's been able to completely cure it, but it's if you work on it, it definitely can become manageable.
That's cool.
Yeah.
There might be studies out there. I don't know off the cuff, but there might, as obviously psychedelics have been like a huge thing for people with PTSD and, trauma and stuff like that. It would be interesting to see in like 10, 15 years if there's any studies that, equate like psychedelics with like OCD and curing that. And everything.
I'm gonna say it again. I've said it like in so many of our episodes already, but I'm shooting a documentary about ketamine right now.
Oh, no way.
And they're using it for PTSD, anxiety, ADHD, OCD, bipolar, and everything. Yeah. And I just shot yesterday a bunch of firefighters that are using it for PTSD and anxiety. And like, it's literally what it does is like when you're going to therapy, you're just trying to pave new pathways in your brain to not go immediately to the intrusive thoughts every time.
Yeah.
But it's a slow process, and like you can only go like once a week and maybe twice a week if you have the time, you know. But ketamine, you only have to go one time, and it paves like a direct pathway into your brain. So I think it's fascinating to see how fast these people are changing their lives, and like they're just so at peace with themselves and like they're happy again, and like they don't have like the addictions that they had before, and like, they can go back to work from their PTSD, and it's fascinating. So like I'm super into like learning about ketamine right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to see like what happens with that.
Yeah.
Well, and that was with having like an anxiety disorder and depression and OCD and ADHD. Like, I've never knocked psychedelics off the table, but there's always been that like fear of like, I don't know what kind of reaction it would have with me.
Yeah.
But it does get me curious as to like, obviously with pharmaceutical companies, they just go straight for like Ritalin.
I think it's way
SSRIs.
better than
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
You know.
completely.
yeah.
But like obviously, and there's so much like conspiracy behind like using psychedelics versus.
Yeah, but you're listening to the wrong people.
I know.
In my opinion.
Yeah,
Sorry.
there's definitely dangers.
Yeah,
like let's
there are.
like people
That's
like to
true.
paint psychedelics as this thing. I just learned about this the other day. There's this thing called HPPD, and essentially 3% of psychedelic users, if they take psychedelics, from my understanding, they don't necessarily know what causes it, but essentially if typically younger people that take psychedelics, they end up, you know, after their experience is over and everything, they have a vision disorder.
Oh, wow.
Where it pretty much looks like you're looking through a static TV for the rest of your life. There's no cure or anything like that.
What?
So like it's a very low percentage of people, but obviously that's a huge risk.
I've never heard that before.
Yeah,
in my
it's
life.
or like in like floaters, like being like it causes so much distress. Like some people like the white on paper like is so intense for them that they like can't look at it.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's relatively safe, but there are definitely some dangers for sure.
I've had some people in my experiences like freak out on hallucinogens, where they had to like we had to like tie someone down in a chair with
Oh,
like
wow.
rope.
Is this in your like filming like these firefighters? Okay,
No,
'Cause I feel
no,
like
it
that
was
would be-
like in college. Like,
Okay,
you
right
know,
on.
but we had to like tackle him to the ground and like tie him into a chair and call an ambulance for him, and they had to like
Jeez.
give him whatever medicine to like get him to stop tripping. And then it actually just happened. I went to a music festival this last weekend, and one of the girls that we came with did some sort of hallucinogen, and we weren't with her all night, and like she's still not recovered from it. She's like kind of like disassociated to like
Jeez.
real life, and she thought that we were with her the entire time, and we weren't, and like we're just trying to like bring her back down, but I don't think it's something that we can fix.
Yeah.
Well, and that's been the scary thing about me with considering something as powerful as hallucinogens is I've heard of people that enter a state of psychosis afterwards.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And whatever state that they're in, they just never come back. Like the chemical in it somehow reacts to some sort of chemical in their body.
Yeah.
Do you think shrooms would do that?
I've
So-
heard of it doing it.
So
Really, shrooms. Okay.
before I did like music and real estate and everything, I have my degree in social work, and so I was going to be a substance abuse therapist. So learned a lot about addiction, and you know the likelihood of someone overcoming addiction is abysmal, right? With like psychedelics and everything. I'm gonna speak off the cuff, but somebody that has like an experience with psychedelics that has addiction, like the recovery is like 40%. And so there's something about those neural pathways that change and everything like that. And so I think it's more of, you know, people not necessarily understanding the treatment of psychedelics and like what that looks like. So if you go into a space where, you know, you're say at a music festival and you're there to have like a really good time off of something that's as powerful that is literally changing your brain.
Right.
Like that just does not sound like a good idea at all. Like,
yeah.
you know, in the proper settings, like there's a lot of promising things for, you know, all psychedelics for, you know, like trauma from, soldiers and everything like that.
Yeah, healing.
Yeah.
Using it as healing, not for fun.
Yeah. Absolutely. Because I mean, you're playing with fire. Like it's not a small thing. And so it's fascinating to like look at the research and everything like that.
Wow.
Well, and then considering, like when I hear about people just randomly trying it, the thing that I try to remember is the fact that like it's still chemicals that you're mixing together.
Yeah.
You're mixing chemicals with whatever chemicals are already in your body, meaning also hormones or neurons. And if they are in any medication, even something simple like certain dosages can have different, if someone takes 1 milligram of mushrooms and they're on SSRIs, that could have a huge different effect than if they were to take 10 milligrams.
Yeah.
Completely.
And so that's where I kind of get a little bit nervous about like even like microdosing something is because like you don't know your entire body chemistry.
Completely.
And if you do take just the right amount of something, that's where I've seen people possibly enter that state of psychosis because it was like your brain was like maybe beforehand, even if you've taken it before, because I've heard of it happening before where someone takes it like, oh no, I'm fine. But then they take just a little bit more this next time. And that was the pushing point to where it was like their brain is like, okay, so we got this, now we can completely alter.
Yeah, completely.
So
It's so interesting to me because it's not been my experience at all. Like
you
I'm
have
not,
a different
I'm still not scared of it.
well, and like you have a different body chemistry than me, than him.
Right.
You have different hormones and chemicals that run throughout your body.
I did figure out that while I was at my music festival that if I was taking my antipsychotic medication, it wasn't working for me, so I didn't take it on the last day.
Oh shoot!
So, and it did. So I know that Adderall also like cancels out any psychedelics as well.
Really?
Yeah. So if you're freaking out, just give someone an Adderall.
Which I mean, it's kind of the same thing. Like if someone's drunk and they try coke, then it kind of sobers them up a bit.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's one of the reasons why like I've even been scared to experiment with things like that, because at least with doing pharmaceuticals and being on that, you're working with somebody that like they've done studies as to like for your body weight for this is the appropriate amount, and you're working with a professional. And it's not to say like I'm on board with pharmaceuticals at all.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still, to me, it's still poisoning your body.
Yeah, right.
But in that instance, like if
You have to start on low doses, so it's like the same thing of like just microdose and try it out. It's the same thing, I think.
which that's been a consideration, but it's also microdosing is also different for everyone. Like at least with in that instance, they've done the trials to see like this is the minimal dose that anybody in this weight class can be with.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of bring you up. If it's someone that's been professionally experimenting with a psychedelic, that's like I've done studies on thousands of people on all these different types of things. Here's like the minimum dose, and then we increment your way up, and then they have like the escape route of like we have all of the stuff here to be able to counteract whatever we just gave you to bring you back down to base level. With psychedelics, it's obviously hard to do that because at least with like SSRIs, it's not changing your brain chemistry in the same way a hallucinogen does.
Yeah.
Right.
With a hallucinogen, it's completely like I don't even know exactly what's happening on the neural level.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just feel like there hasn't been enough studies for it. But like what I've been learning just on this one documentary, but I've done a lot of documentaries now about like just the changes of studies about all sorts of things. Like I think that there just isn't enough studies done yet on how it helps people with ADHD and OCD and PTSD yet.
Yeah.
And it's just that like fear right now that people don't want to take it because all of this like negative like talk about it has been all we've heard of for decades.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to talk people into trying it.
Yeah. And you also see, with like when marijuana was legalized, like in Colorado and everything, like people, they were like, oh, like once you turn 25, it won't change your brain chemistry. You won't do stuff like that. But I mean, at the same time, there's a lot of like dark sides that come with like chronic marijuana usage,
Right.
everything like that. And so, kind of the same with, psychedelics, there's, probably more safer psychedelics than other ones,
Yeah.
sure. But same thing if you have like a predisposition, for either psychosis or,
Right.
say, like schizophrenia, like
Yeah.
you can literally just
Can like trigger it.
completely unlock your life to just have like a
That's so true.
breakdown for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Like this is very powerful thing.
I feel like that happened to the guy in college that like he I don't even want to go into it, but like he became a different person after
Yeah,
that. Like,
completely. And that's what you're doing. You're essentially changing the entire chemistry of who this person
Yeah.
is. So
luckily
it's-
for me, it changed my life for the better.
Yeah, which I mean, that can happen to most people, but like for those who are predisposed to neurological things like dementia, schizophrenia, stuff like that, anything chemical wise can trigger it. But I think that specifically hallucinogens just might have a higher chance because of how much you're changing brain chemistry.
completely.
Like I've seen it happen. Like I have a friend who's literally like they tried it once and now they are full on diagnosed dementia and they're literally my age.
That's crazy.
And
Dude, this is crazy to me.
which yes, you're 100% right on the experimentation thing, but
Yeah.
it's like that
That's a real fear. I get the fear.
well in I do blame the fact that yes, it's not experimented on because it's not legal to experiment on
Right.
stuff like
Right.
that. Like now they finally just started legalizing experimentation with psilocybin. They finally started letting like certain universities start using it in certain things or like a little bit of ketamine stuff, and maybe give it 10, 20 years of consistent studies, consistently different things coming out with it.
Yeah.
And it'll be like, okay, well, we can give you a tiny capsule, like 5 milligrams of psilocybin to see if that works. But obviously there's all the conspiracy with the pharmaceutical companies
Right.
and all that. So it's such a hard thing of like, who knows? Maybe a certain amount of psilocybin will completely cure OCD.
Right.
Or
Who
a
knows?
certain like hallucinogen that is barely known to whatever, some sort of DMT type of drug. If you give it to someone with PTSD, they're completely cured.
Yeah.
Right.
But it just takes that ability to experiment with those kinds of things. But
Right.
it's not just like experimenting on one person. That's why the SSRIs and stuff have become legal, because when they're experimenting, they're doing so many different case studies of like, okay, let's do different ethnicities, body weights.
I think it's meant to control people too. Like
Yeah.
psychedelics are a kind of mind opening and like
Yeah.
you kind of fight against the system a little bit more.
As we learned from previous stuff, like hallucinogens, when they were introduced, it was used as a mind control type of thing.
Right.
Like when LSD was created, it wasn't created as a recreational party drug.
Right.
It was created with the intent to hopefully use as mind control. And it had all of this very hairy type of experimentation that was done. And now it's whatever. And like same thing with cannabis. The origination of the legality of it has nothing to do with the effects of cannabis. I don't know if you guys heard about like how it became illegal and stuff, but it was
Money?
um
I don't know.
Yeah. I wrote a paper on it in college. straight
Did
up.
you?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
it had to do a lot more with racism.
Yeah, so like essentially, I think it was William Randolph Hearst. He was a paper baron way back in the day, and hemp is a lot cheaper and affordable
I've
to.
heard this story.
Yeah, and then so he essentially made a huge racist campaign about marijuana and the effects and stuff like that in order to like protect his interest in paper, so that
Right.
way
Yeah.
they would continue to buy paper rather than hemp
Wow.
products and stuff like that.
Way to
And so-
ruin the planet.
Yeah, right.
Oh
It was
my
just-
god.
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Because like at that time it was like the African American jazz musicians or whatever that were using marijuana, and so he would put like these black people are stealing our white women type of stuff and making it to where like the predominant controlling part of the country, which was the white man, was like they had this fear initiated in them because of this, and like they're like, oh, it's destroying the brains and it's making this happen and it's doing this. Obviously no case studies about it. It was literally the
It was all
monetary gain.
Just a word of mouth.
sensationalized.
And still
Wow.
a century later we're still fighting the legality
Yeah.
of it. They're trying to say that it's due to medical stuff, but in reality, it's still based off of a presumption of that kind of stuff. But it's that kind of stuff that's like, okay, what kind of other stuff could possibly help?
Yeah.
Here's another thing that's really interesting with that too, is that, you know, when it comes to like substances and people like using for, you know, like say for ADHD and everything, you know, doing like Adderall or like, you know, Ritalin, marijuana, coffee, nicotine and stuff like that. Essentially what you're doing is that you're trying to like fix the problem with a substance.
Yeah.
And that's set up to fail, like as it is, because once you're on substances or you're taking substances, it might be great for a little bit, but just the reality of substances and using substances is that they're not going to work for forever.
Right.
No.
Like you're going to have to up your dose. You're going to have to do this, or, you know, you're going to have more symptoms. So then you're going to have to bring in another medication.
Yeah.
And it becomes this tapestry of, you know, usage where, you know, kind of like circling back to like managing in a more natural way,
Yeah.
you know, is like, you know, using supplements or like, you know, being off your phone. Like we're seeing a huge increase of people with ADHD, you know, because people are on TikTok frying their brains for 5 hours a day. So we're seeing people's brains change essentially from their usage. And so, you know, there's definitely a place for medications. There's a place for where there, you know, people that might have severe issues. But, you know, I firmly believe that if we had people eating right, if we had people exercising, taking care of themselves and not necessarily, you know, using things as, you know, a Band-Aid that's really quick. Because, you know, at least in my anecdotal experience is that I find that I function the best when I'm taking care of myself.
Right.
My anxiety goes down, you know, OCD symptoms go down, ADHD goes down, and it's all, you know, finding more natural things, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, go ahead. Do you take medication then, or are you just like all natural?
So I only take it every so often.
Yeah,
So if it's like, all right, I have a lot of paperwork to do where I need to like directly focus, then I'll take medication. And so, but for the majority, essentially, finding steps. So you heard my phone go off earlier. So that's my signal that my bedtime's approaching.
Oh, cool.
So I'll probably have another one go off again where it's like, okay, now
you have
go
to.
to bed.
Yeah, okay.
Start my routine.
Yeah.
So the big thing that I've found is having a routine where it's like 5 a.m. I wake up, you know, I get on Duolingo, learn some Spanish, you know, do affirmations, eat breakfast, then I'm out the door to the gym.
Yeah.
And then I'm there for a specific amount of time, then go to work and then work until, you know, I have no more executive function, essentially. And then either, you know, using like caffeine or nicotine or, you know, a myriad of those things in order to, you know, kind of push the envelope and everything.
I'm so envious of you that you can have that kind of routine, because my life is just pure chaos, and like I should try. I don't try at
Is there,
all.
what would you say is holding you back from having like a structured routine?
Because I work as a freelance contractor, so like I'll get a job that's like 3 days at like 5 in to 10 p.m. at night, and then after the third day, that job's over, and the next morning, I have a job at 8 to 2 a.m., and then that next job is at 5 a.m. again, and
That
then
would be tough.
so I don't sleep half the time, like. Then the next job is like 4 nights of overnights, and then like my sleep is screwed up, and like
That's crazy.
yeah, like I don't have any control.
I would struggle.
Yeah.
A lot.
And I'm away from my house a lot because I work all the time, and we get fed at work too. So I don't have like groceries at home. I don't like cook at home like a lot, because if I buy groceries, then I'll get a job out of town for 4 days, and then I have all this groceries, and then they just go bad, and so I just don't buy a lot.
Yeah.
And so I don't have like any type of routine whatsoever.
Does that stress you out? I didn't get anxiety just thinking about it.
Yeah, it's
I mean,
really
damn,
a
that's
detriment
crazy.
to my life, like really badly.
I work in the same industry, and one of the ways that I've been able to kind of still add in some routine and stuff is by using the reward system, by like figuring out what I need to do and then offering myself the, like, it obviously does take that discipline to be able to tell yourself no on certain stuff. But like, say I do have overnight shoots or something that I have to do, or something that I know is going to disrupt it. As soon as I can, I try to go back to what it was, but there's now a reward. Like, if I haven't been to the gym in a few days, for me, I love going into the sauna. I'll tell myself though, like, I can't go to the sauna unless I go and at least do like a 2-minute workout. It doesn't have to be like insane, absolute bodybuilder type of stuff, but at least get there.
Yeah.
At least like, and like thinking about the smaller things rather than like, oh, I need to wake up at 5 a.m. I need to hit the gym. I need to, like, thinking about it on the smaller scale. Like, for me, routines run my life. If I don't have a routine to stay on in that base, I can't function.
For me, I can't, like, I don't make it to the gym because my job is a gym. Like, I have to carry so much weight all the time that I don't want to be sore at work because then I can't do my job.
Yeah.
And like, I literally, my whole right shoulder is so sore right now because I had to carry a 50-pound camera on my shoulder for 9.5 hours yesterday.
Oh my gosh.
And so like, I should go to the gym to get stronger so it doesn't hurt as much. But like, when I get home, I'm so exhausted that like, you would have to drag me.
Right.
You would have to drag me to the gym.
Completely.
But that would help my bipolar. It would help like everything in my life if I would just try to figure out how to. But I can't manage it because it's different every time. It's different every week. Like,
Have you just kind of workshopping? Like, have you thought about like doing it? Like, have that be like the first thing that you do, like in the day? Like maybe like instead of like weight training, maybe like going for a run.
Yeah.
One thing I've actually learned, it's kind of crazy. So like, the importance of walking. Like, it sounds so stupid, but like the amount of walking that you do, just straight walking,
Yeah.
it has direct impact on your health and mental health.
Yeah.
But anyways, rewinding back to the question, have you considered that? Or?
I have considered that. For me, I've had a lot of like personal traumas with like being followed around
Oh my god.
and stuff, and especially in my neighborhood right here. You just like walked out of my gate and like I would get followed around. So like I tried
my
to
gosh.
walk to the gym because it's really close by, and I got followed by 3 people. So like it's hard for me to like want to get up and go out to do any of that.
Absolutely. Clearly. I would feel the same way.
So I would have to drive somewhere else to go for a walk.
That sounds like a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
You're like, this defeats the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
For
So
you have a bike right there. It could be
I
something
know.
as simple as like,
That's why I
if you
got
can't
it.
go to the gym, then
Yeah.
you can put it outside. That way you can at least go into your yard.
Yeah.
Like, the whole point of it is to get your heart rate up a little bit.
You're
So,
right.
I mean, when you start doing that, that's when the chemical, it doesn't have to be walking around the block or anything. It's
Yeah.
As long as you can raise your heart rate a little bit and start getting that cardio going, that's what matters. So if that just means stepping into your yard, using the bike, or just getting a cheap ass treadmill off of Facebook Marketplace or something,
Yeah.
and doing that,
That's smart. I
just-
never even thought about doing that.
like just a little something that kind of helps doing that.
Yeah.
Body weight workouts.
You're right. I have been going, so like my depression really holds me back a lot.
Yeah.
And like, so I've said it on a previous podcast though, is like some people have had to like come to my house and like drag me outside in the sun. But like I have been doing really good the past like couple of days at least to go outside and feel the sun on my skin. And like that's like my first big step.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's excellent.
Yeah.
I mean, even small steps like that, it's too many people, or too many times people try to think about like the big thing of like, oh, well, I'm not able to wake up at 5 a.m., go to the gym, do all that, so I'm just not even going to start.
Yeah.
It's finding what does work for you
Yeah.
and building from there. Like, for me, I've tried waking up at 5 a.m. and doing the whole David Goggins type of routine and going crazy with like, oh, the first second I get out of bed, I hit a 30-degree ice plunge and then do all that. I'm like,
Right.
I can't do that. But what I can do is I can wake up maybe at 7 or 8, splash some cold water in my face, do some journaling or something, do like recognize the habits that I don't want to have, which is like going on my phone first thing in the morning.
Yeah.
There's a book that I read called Atomic Habits. That beautiful book, but it goes into like finding the habits that you don't want to have, creating friction there, and then easing friction on stuff that you do want to do. So like now I moved my phone charger away from my bed and put it all the way across my room.
Oh yeah, dude.
That way, like even last night, I was still scrolling, but I was like, oh, my phone's at 2%. I'm like, well, I can either use even more energy, go get my phone charger and plug it in, or get up and then I just plug it in. I'm like, you know what? It's plugged in. I'm just gonna go back, and then I put like a book next to my bed, so that way I'm just reading a book instead of going on my phone. Putting like my alarm on the other side of the room, so I have to actually get up to go turn it off, and then my dog sees that I'm up, and she'll immediately go to the door. I'm like, oh well, I can't go back in the bed now because I have to let her out, and like instead of just letting her out and going back inside, I go out with her to be like, okay, now I don't have my phone on me, so I can go outside and look at the sky a little bit, and start and like just starting on those little small things. Maybe getting up, doing some jumping jacks or something, trying to get the heart rate up, just like easing into it, taking the small little bites until eventually you can be like, okay, cool, I can do this now.
Right.
And that's kind of what's helped me a little bit.
I've been trying to. I started going out in the sun. So.
Yeah. And
That's honestly like it's crazy. So I've taken a deep dive in like circadian rhythms and shit like that. And the sun and like it's such a powerful thing.
Yeah.
I think if you were to do any first step, like that is the one that you should be doing.
Yeah.
So like high five for you for like doing that. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's
I'm happier. The last 3 days I've been way happier.
Oh, totally.
the two that affect most is watching the sunrise and sunset.
Yeah.
You have neurons in your eyeballs that specifically react to sunlight to stop melatonin release, enable cortisol release to help wake you up a little bit, and even like watching the sunset. If you can watch a sunset, that'll help trick your brain, not trick your brain, but help tell your brain like, hey, it's the end of the day. Now I can start kind of winding down a little bit.
Yeah.
And
That makes sense.
doing some of that stuff. But I mean, like for me, some people can do fine with no routine. I can't. I've seen what happens when I have no routine, and that's where a lot of like the ADHD paralysis comes in.
I don't know how fine I am. I function.
Yeah, but it's also just an experimental thing. Like you can do the whole Huberman routine or Goggins routine or whatever. Some people can go balls to the wall and just do that. Other people, it takes small steps to. It's not a sprint; it's a marathon type.
Yeah, totally. And just like habit stacking.
Yeah,
you know, like your routine might be that you don't have a routine.
Yeah.
But in like part of that is like having like little things that you do, like going out in the sun, and then maybe next you drink water before like you start your day, or you know, it's just doing those little things, you know. And, you know, obviously your routine is all over the place, but maybe even making like just 20 or 30 minutes. Of just, I don't know.
Like it won't be like at 5 a.m. or at 7 a.m. But like whenever I can do it.
Exactly. Exactly. And whenever you wake up for the day. You know,
some people like I've been told like it's better to like not even have like if you have the ability to not have an alarm and you could just let your body sleep, but get up when you wake up instead of just staying in bed, that's perfectly okay.
That would never happen. I would sleep like for 30 days. Like, like never get out of it.
Yeah.
But I think when it comes to just like routines and stuff, it just people underestimate the power of those small natural things and just get hooked on like I hate the fact that I have to take medication every day to mitigate certain things. But because of the certain types of medication I take, it's even more hell to get off of them than it is to just like screw it and stay on them. When if I would have just had someone that kind of helped walk me through natural routines to kind of get into, because like when I first got introduced to medication, I can't say at all that the rest of my life was healthy at all. My sleep schedule was so bad. I wasn't eating good. Everything else was so bad. I can only imagine what my brain would have been like if instead of immediately going to SSRIs, it was like let's experiment with like
Exercise.
30 days of doing this, 30 days of doing that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. So like I ran out of ADD medication, and I ended up having to get more, and I had to like go see a doctor, but then the doctor like didn't actually prescribe like because it's a Schedule 1 or something like that. So I had to see this other guy. It was like this huge thing, right? And so I ended up like finally going to a doctor, and like he gave me the medication, and then I like circled back, And I was like, hey, like, this isn't really great. Like, I don't feel like I'm, like, necessarily thriving. Like, what else can I do? And he was like, well, you can do Ritalin, you can do, Adderall, blah, 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 blah. Didn't mention food, didn't mention, like, doing other things.
Right.
And it's like this almost like meat processing plant where it's like, oh, you got this, like there's there's a drug, or like, and it's like there are so many other things.
Right.
Well, for something especially like ADHD, the fact that like I love kind of the concept of the dopamine detox concept.
Oh yeah, dude.
Because like it sucks and it's absolute hell, but like that's how you kind of reset your body, because like our bodies are natural masters of balance. It's always going to try to put itself back in balance. So like with dopamine, the opposite chemical is going to be cortisol, and so it's the more dopamine that is happening in the brain, the more natural cortisol is going to get released to try to mitigate that. And so that's where you get the addiction stuff.
What's a dopamine detox like consist of?
Detox is like, you think of all the things that kind of currently give you dopamine. So maybe that's scrolling on TikTok for a while,
right?
Vaping, or just like anything that gives you that, like for some people it's porn, some people it's like those things that just give you that insane dopamine rush, and literally just like completely stopping it for like 30 days. Just like completely detoxing your, like
that hurts.
It hurts.
It hurts me already just thinking about it.
It's pretty much like going through withdrawal from a drug.
Yeah.
Like deleting all your apps for a week straight.
Nope.
The first 2 days are going to be absolute hell, but like the more like I've had to do it, I deleted Snapchat for like a month, and like the first couple days I'm like going through withdrawal. I'm like, I need to see who's texting me, but then like
you're like going to the where you had it on your phone.
Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And then like, but after like a week, and after like a week and a half, I'm like even forgetting to
Look.
I even had the account, and like after a while, like it gets easier as more time passes. Like the first couple days are gonna be hell, but like that kind of concept for me, I was like, okay, and try and maybe create distractions. Like okay, instead of
read a book.
Yeah, instead of scrolling, I'm going to get a book that is really interesting, and it's going to do that. Or maybe switching from watching stuff on your phone to just like putting a movie on your TV.
Yeah.
Instead of going to jack off to porn, go to the gym.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to do that with my computer, where like I want to put my phone down and not be on my phone, use my computer, but then like I have to like log into everything, and they're like, we just sent a text to your phone. Like, put your freaking code in. I'm like, and it happened to me like so many times where like I was trying to log into a bunch of stuff, and it just like kept asking me for my phone. I was like, I'll just get on my phone then, and I gave up completely.
Well, if you're already logged into a
help.
thing that usually like on my TV, once you log in, you're logged in.
It was just so annoying.
Yeah.
Do you guys want to hear something crazy?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, so for those that don't know, I have 4 children, right? And so we noticed that when we would go through sprints of having our kids watch TV, their behavior would skyrocket by them throwing tantrums, like being upset, like not sleeping well. Like I'm talking probably like 300%.
Wow.
Like they're just horrible people. But when we would take it away, they're playing games, they're reading books, like
creating things.
They're bored.
Yeah.
And so, we're continually stimulated, whether that's music, listening to podcasts, which thanks for listening. That's great. Like even thinking about like, whatever you're doing, you have something going on.
Yeah.
So we're just in this, stew of dopamine. And so like we have to kind of like separate ourselves from that.
Yeah.
And we're not even talking about like, tinfoil hat shit of like scrolling through and the algorithms are like throwing subliminal messages about you and world views and stressing you out by the impending doom of the environment. We're just talking like, so like,
wow,
there's just a lot going on.
That's such an interesting concept, because that's happening to us as adults.
Yeah.
Because it wouldn't just ever go away.
Exactly.
It's too much money.
Wow.
Exactly. That's the thing. It's like, it's arguably the most used drug ever.
Yeah.
Which I think it sucks the most too, because earlier, like for us at least, we were exposed to it more older as adults. For kids these days, it's like, at least for us, we go to the classroom, there's no computer. Like I grew up with like that projector that literally just has
Yeah,
a
I
light
love the
that kinda-
projector thing.
that you have to squirt the water on to clear it and stuff. Now they have the smart boards, and then that was like a huge thing. But now they just have laptops and tablets and stuff.
Absolutely.
Like they're just learning off of a computer, and they're not only like the teachers are like, I have a lot of teacher friends. Like I don't really teach them anything. I put them in front of their tablet, and then they have these online lessons that are curated with games and stuff, and that kind of teaches them. And I'm like,
Why are you even there then?
Yeah, I'm like,
babysitting.
Exactly.
it's like, okay, so not
That
only are they
sucks.
being stimulated for 8 hours a day at school doing that, but now
Then they go
we
home.
have these parents that are impatient with their kids. They're like, I
Oh,
need to
yeah,
get work
dude.
done. Here's your tablet. Leave me alone for the next 3 hours.
Right.
Watch your Paw Patrol or Bluey or something
Yeah.
and do that. They're shutting up because they're stimulated. They're doing that. But now it's like you take that away. They're like, no, I need stimulation. I need stimulation.
Exactly.
Right.
And the
Oh,
parents are feeling that too because they're stimulated by tech.
Yeah.
So it's just this horrible, horrible thing. And then like even going into like the school system and how it's essentially designed for only specific kids to thrive.
Yeah.
So then you get this kid who's like rambunctious and stuff like that. And it's like, oh, this kid has attention issues. And it's like, no, this person is not designed for this environment.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm a religious person, right? And so, you know, when we take our kids to church, we're in like a pew where I have a 7-year-old, a 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 1-year-old. That is not an environment where they're going to thrive.
Right.
They can't move around. They can't explore, do kid things.
Yeah.
So even today, we ended up like going to a church where we could be outside and the kids were like, you know, so much more well behaved. They weren't getting into trouble because
they
they
were
had freedom
anxious,
and we put them in an environment where they could thrive.
Yeah.
We're putting people in environments where they can't thrive and then we're like, oh, you're not thriving. There must be something wrong with you.
Right.
Yeah.
When we're not like being like, hey, this is probably not the right space for you. So just to kind of like circle through. So I do real estate and it's great because it matches exactly like who I am as a person.
Right.
Like even today, like I wasn't necessarily supposed to work or anything. And like I got a text from a client who's like, hey, just went to an open house. You know, we weren't going to look until the end of the year, but this fits perfectly. We went back and forth where it's like, hey, like I'm going to go check out the house. I know you checked it out. You love it. And ended up going back home and they're like, hey, I think we want to write an offer on it. It's like, okay, great. So I'm like, hey, let's check it out one more time. And then we went back. Okay. Like somebody that is super structured and like, oh, I need to blah, 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 blah. Like that would not work for them. But for
Right.
me, like, you know, it's exciting. It's new.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just going with the flow and everything.
Well, that's the unfortunate thing with things like the behavioral diagnosis, like ADD, ADHD, and stuff. It almost makes me wonder of like how many kids don't actually have something like that, and it's just the environment.
Yeah.
In my school, I wasn't interested in learning history. I wasn't interested in learning about algebra and stuff. I was interested in the hands-on stuff, welding or woodwork or something that I can actually like physically like. If you sat a teacher in front of me that just taught me from a textbook for 3 hours, I wasn't gonna be able to pay attention.
Exactly.
But if you sat me with like, okay, here's the nail gun, put it here, do this. I'm like, oh shit, okay, I just did something.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, that's
Right.
awesome.
Right.
In those kind of situations, you would still look at me like, well, you can't pay attention to math. We just sat him through a 3-hour lecture on the Pythagorean theorem, and for some reason, he just didn't get it.
Yeah. Give him Adderall.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Give them Adderall, right?
That's
Like
awesome.
I loved math for a long time because I got it, but the second I didn't get it, instead of like working with me to figure out what I didn't get, it was
Yeah.
like, okay, he has this kind of issue. Or
Right.
like if someone like I didn't know I wanted the film industry until later, but I also wasn't exposed to any type of creative outlet like, oh, well, you can do this. Like I was drawing a little bit,
Yeah.
but that was just like a side thing. And then I'd have to go, oh, here's earth chemistry. Here's this. And I'm like, okay, I don't care what Hoover did at this time. I care about film now, or I care about finishing that drawing when I get home because I was doing really good with that. Which, like, even now, that's why college didn't work for me. 'Cause I'm like, I don't do well with formal education.
Yeah,
I do all
totally.
specialized knowledge. I will hyperfixate on something with film and learn every little thing about it and be like, okay, I know all the angles now. I know all the lenses I need to use. I know all of that. Like when it came to business, when I was in school, I couldn't pay attention to business for shit. They tried to teach economics or teach all that. I'm like, I'm not interested in anything like that. But then once I got into it myself a little bit and I was like, oh, okay, so now this clicks into this and then this leads to this. And it was like my own pace of like, okay. And then I was able to even just buy college textbooks for myself and just read it and I was able to, I don't want to say hyperfixate, but keep my focus on that rather than like, okay, we're doing economics. Oh, but now we have to do history and now we have to do this.
Right.
It's like, I'm able to keep my focus on this, continue this like momentum of learning this. And that's what was able to make me like, cool.
Yeah.
I can actually like own my own business now because I've learned about it and I didn't have to worry about how atoms are merging together over here.
Totally.
So
Here's the like to kind of cascade on that too is if you really look at the education system, how much of it is actually pertinent to like existence?
yeah,
Essentially what we're doing is we're taking children, wasting their childhood with useless facts and information. We're sitting them in an environment that is essentially designed to make workers rather than like people that are like being like their creativity is being harnessed and everything like that. And then we couple that with there are different learning styles that people have. You know, they have visual, audio, kinesthetic, and typically, you know, people aren't necessarily catering to all of those simultaneously.
Right.
You know, so it's just this, I don't know, it breaks my heart how many incredible like spirits that have been crushed by like our education system and
Yeah.
the way that it's set up, you know?
Right.
I mean, when I was in high school, I remember my economics class, it was at like 7 a.m. in the basement of the school pretty much. No windows, no nothing. And half the time she had the projector or something going, so it was a dark environment already. And so I'm like, this is like, I just woke up an hour ago and you're putting me in the least stimulating thing possible. Like, it'd be different if we went outside and there was maybe a physical demonstration of something. But you have me in this environment where, yeah, I'm going to fall asleep in class. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Stayed up till 3 a.m. playing video games. You think I'm going to wake up at 6:30 to do an economics lesson? Of a girl's like, okay, so today we're going to be focusing on profit loss
Right.
chart and stuff. I'm like, seriously?
That's what I listen to go to bed.
Yeah, I'm like, where's your brain at with fixing the schedule? Like, it should be like, okay, first class is gym class to get the part going.
Yeah.
And then after that, and then like focusing on the like if you even look at the psychology of kids of like during the day or like time of day to where they are most and least interactive in their brains, you see like different things. Like we have, I think attention spans are normally about 20 minutes on, 20 minutes off or 20 minutes on, 5 minutes off. We have our peak amount of paying attention at this. Doesn't matter what it is, how stimulating it is. Obviously, for ADHD, it's a little bit more like you can hyperfixate for a while. But typically, like we've seen it with like Jeff Bezos. He's like, I do work for 20 minutes and then I take a 5 to 15 minute break of just walking around or something, and then I go back because your brain has waves of focus time. It's not the constant 6 hours.
Yeah.
And then like during the day, we have midday crashes. So you send the kids to lunch. They fill up on carbs and stuff that you're giving them, send them back into a unstimulating environment, and you're like, I don't know what we're doing wrong. I'm like, no?
There's just like no way in sight to see a difference though.
Yeah.
Like I just
Wait,
don't
guys,
know.
what do you mean?
In education and like changing this for our students, you know? I don't see it.
I think it has to kind of be like a grassroots like revolution.
Yeah.
So my wife was a teacher for 7 years. She taught third grade and everything. And, you know, coming from that environment, seeing what works and what doesn't work, there has to be like an overall change. And there are definitely some institutions that have like started to like veer away from that, where it's like maybe a 4-day school day where, you know, they get out at, you know, 3 or something, 2 or 3. So there are like changes, but I feel like here's the other thing too, is that the way that economically that America currently is that in order to sustain a family, there has to be two incomes.
Right.
Right? So there has to be. Okay, so great. So if people have kids, you know, so I have a friend of mine who puts two kids in daycare for the working time of the week.
Uh-huh.
The $1,100 a week he spends on daycare.
Yeah.
School is essentially designed to be daycare. So these people are raising your kids. They're seeing your kids more than what the parents are seeing. So if they went away with the education system, like what are these parents going to do? Because they economically could not, have like a parent stay home and raise their kids. Right. It's this whole like universe, this ecosystem that is designed to like have people fail,
Not
essentially.
sustainable
Not sustainable. No.
That's kind of circling back to what you were saying about like the 9 to 5 thing, because that wouldn't be an issue if workplaces changed the way that they operated and they didn't have just a regular like 9 to 5 schedule, you're paid at $20 an hour type of thing. The reason why we have to have the schools and stuff is because the parents are going 9 to 5. Like for me, one of the reasons I decided to chase entrepreneurship and stuff is because I tried the 9 to 5 type of thing Monday through Friday. I was like, this is BS.
Yeah.
I would rather like work around, like maybe do 2-3 hour work session in the morning, take a break, and then maybe come back to it at night when everyone's asleep, or like work around certain schedules and like have it be performance rather than
completely
have it like, even when I have people that work for me, I never tell them like, oh, you need to clock in and do this. I'm like, as long as you get the project done by this time, that's all I care about type of thing.
100%.
And I've seen workplaces even thrive with better work environments in situations like that. To where, like work from home now has made it to where people are able to stay at home with their kids a little bit more. Or just having performance-based rather than pay hourly type of stuff. So it's kind of just like all a full circle type of thing. But I wouldn't even have a problem with the education system if it was designed in a different way. If it was specialized knowledge, like it grosses me out to the max of like how underpaid teachers are. And
it's insane. It is baffling how underpaid teachers are. Like it is crazy.
Yeah. And when that kind of stuff happens and you're limiting the amount of money, and like I know I've had some friends who are like defunding the education system, and while I do agree with some aspects of that, I'm like, defund where it needs to be defunded, meaning the people at the top don't get the billions of dollars.
Right.
And like you're putting the money into the pockets of the teachers and more fun environments, more specialized, like being able to, instead of having 60 kids in one classroom with one teacher. There was one school that I saw that was like, I have a friend that he's there and he's like, I have 3 students of mine, and then like each teacher has only like 3 students. Yeah. And my ex-girlfriend, actually, she was working at, I think it was like this Montessori school, to where the education's different, to where it's not one teacher teaching a giant class, and instead it's like each teacher has like maybe 2 or 3 students that they specifically specialize in. So they work with them all throughout the day. They're able to be like, they're not really like too hot in this subject, but they're really good in this subject. So let's specialize in this and kind of go with what they do, and then kind of like...
That's the best case scenario, I think.
100%.
They've seen the results from that with test scores, with everything so much higher based off of the individualized learning rather than just like... Because like you said, everyone learns in their different ways. I couldn't be lectured. I can't do lectures.
Absolutely.
But if I have like... That's one of the reasons I love science, because we were doing physical experiments and stuff, and I was like, this is cool. I'm changing the color of this fire with different metals. This is awesome. Or like, I've just made a volcano out of baking soda and vinegar. But then it's like, oh, here's this test now with 100 questions based off of this. And I'm like, I was asleep during this lesson, this lesson, and this lesson. So I'm sorry.
Absolutely.
I was never good at tests.
Oh, no.
Ever. I mean, I could do like literature and English, like, but I could never do any other test.
Well, and
Yeah.
I
that
couldn't do it.
that
Even if I
was-
knew the answers, I just like would write it wrong. I don't know why.
tests, I wasn't really good at tests, but it was also homework that I couldn't do, and that was one of the things that also, like, I almost failed school completely just because of homework.
Yeah.
I had a bad home life. When I was home, I didn't have the luxury of having the normal mom and dad working and mom making dinner and go play video games. Like I had to work after I got back from school, or I had to take care of my mom, or I had to take care of this. I didn't have 6 out, like the way that they were loading us up in school.
Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Each class gave you an average of about 1 hour of homework.
Yeah.
You're taking 8 classes a day.
Yeah.
You go to school for 6 hours, then you have 8 hours of homework.
Oh yeah.
And that's even going to the athletes who they have
Yeah.
their school, and then they are doing football practice till 7 p.m. And then they have to be there before school. So now they have from about 8 p.m. to maybe midnight
Yeah, dude.
to get everything done.
Yeah.
Find 5 hours of sleep to be able to go back. That same school that I was telling you guys about, they don't do homework either. And the stress levels of the students has diminished like crazy.
Completely.
I'm like, if I didn't have the homework aspect, I would have passed flying colors. I had no problem like doing the assignments and stuff. And anytime the teachers would give us time in class to do homework, I busted it out. I'm like, cool, here you go.
Right, yeah.
yeah.
That's true.
So
Completely.
I get somewhat the concept of like homework and stuff, but even that, I'm like, when I get home, there's psychologically there needs to be a separation of environments. That's why working from home
Absolutely.
can be detrimental to some people, especially that have their desk in their bedroom. And that's why, like, when you get home, you're supposed to decompress and stuff, not thinking about work or anything like that. And the people that do like work from home kind of are a little bit more stressed out.
Yeah.
Because they don't have that physical separation. I at least had that separation to where when I was at school, I didn't have to think about home. When I was at home, I didn't have to think about school. And they're incorporating taking home with you or taking work with you. And it's like my brain is like, hey, we're not at school anymore. You don't have to focus on this anymore. So it's like, wait, why are you taking your textbook out?
Right.
Your Xbox is right there.
Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
It's kind of weird.
I mean, pile all of this, like going back to ADHD and
Yeah.
OCD, like all the struggles that normal people, normal kids have, and then add ADHD onto that.
Yeah.
You know, that's gonna be super stressful. Like, how are you supposed to deal with that too?
Yeah.
Yeah. And just not having the patience to actually deal with it.
Yeah.
And
And not understanding it either because
Yeah.
you're so young. You know.
I mean, there's some specialization that does happen with it, but there's not enough to where it can be altered, and there's too much money in giving into the things that do cause it. There's too much money in phones and social media apps. There's too much money in the technology and stuff to where there's no money in making a kid go play outside.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
There's no money in specializing in this.
There's no money in having people be healthy.
Yeah.
Like it's all like, I mean, if we look at it, you know, we've talked about work week, we've talked about schooling, like
Yeah.
all this is designed to destabilize the person because, you know, we're being benefited off of by being, unhealthy, unhappy, you know, it easier to, I hesitantly use the word control, but like, you know, people don't want people that are smart, thriving, doing well, you know, because that's, you know, that could be a threat. That could be something, you know, that's makes people uncomfortable,
Right.
you know?
Well, and even the professionals that we go to help out with these things, they're not given money by telling us or helping us build routines.
Yeah,
They're given commission off the drugs that they prescribe.
exactly.
Right.
Completely.
Right.
So then that kind of goes in its own thing. Like
Yeah.
when I am an adult and I'm going to an OCD or ADHD specialist and I'm like, hey, I'm having these symptoms, I don't get walked through like, okay, well, let's see what your day-to-day life looks like. And see
Exactly.
what changes we can make. It's what drugs can we give you?
Exactly.
And then, like you said, it's just a domino effect from there.
Yeah.
Luckily, like the amount of other drugs my psychiatrist has tried to prescribe me, and I'm literally telling him like, I don't want any more drugs. I just either need to change this current one, get on a different dose, or figure something else. And
Yeah.
oh, we can add this on. I'm like, no, I don't want to add anything on.
Exactly.
Yeah, for real.
I'm like, my livers are already tanked.
Are you guys familiar with who Mel Robbins is?
Yes.
Okay. So like, here's the thing with her is that I saw her and Tony Robbins speak at a convention for real estate, And it's fascinating because Tony Robbins, like if you've ever seen him or know him, like huge, like performative, like he's selling like coursework. Oh, you can do this. Just buy my coursework, you know, blah, 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 blah. Which is, I mean, it's great. Like I respect the hustle and everything. And then I saw Mel Robbins speak, and her big thing is that 3, 2, 1, go. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
Okay, that's free. Like you can literally just implement that on your life, you know. And obviously, she's not gonna make nearly as much money as like oh, do this course. Like we're gonna like get together in a sweat lodge in Panama. It's gonna be awesome. Like you know, and there's not money to be made by doing these like free things, and it's. I don't know if you guys ever see it, but it's really frustrating seeing people like if you're like, hey, eat right, take care of yourself, do these things, you'll probably be a bit more happier. They're like, oh, you're just like disregarding my experiences and stuff like that. It's like, that's not it, but you're just surrounded by all these detrimental things that are making you feel like garbage.
You're not even giving yourself a chance.
Exactly. And it's like, all this shit's free. Is all it takes is your brain. Like it's
So when it comes to, since you didn't really know a lot about like OCD, ADHD and stuff, obviously like the definitions, even like the definition I read on the government website, I don't think that pertains to me either.
right.
Because I've gone into what it actually is with the dopamine stuff. I mean, it's obviously hard to like self-diagnose, but like for you, how do you feel like you might relate to possibly either of those?
I mean, I don't know anymore because like the definition that you read off was like that you're like anxious and like you can't focus on things.
Yeah.
And like for me, like I focus really hard on things, but like at the same time, like that guy's real. It's like you think that I'm lazy, but my thoughts are happening like 1,000 thoughts a second.
Yeah.
Like I know exactly what I should be doing.
Yeah.
But I just can't do it. I can't focus on that. So, like, I don't know what the difference is there. Because, like, when I am focused on something, I'm super, like, organized. And, like, I have to get it all done correctly. And, like, I'm even to the point where, like, I have to, like, move furniture, like, a little to the left just to make it, like, feel better in the space. And so I don't know which is which and if that even is something that that is considered.
So with like ADD or ADHD, like the way it presents itself in like women or men, or like there's a whole spectrum.
Yeah.
So like what mine looks like might be completely different. Like you might have something like that.
Yeah.
And it's I think it's important. See?
Yeah. You gotta go back here.
Right? Yeah. It's important to like, I don't know, explore that because you don't know, we don't know.
Yeah.
We're just a couple people
I'm definitely
talking.
gonna ask my psychiatrist because I just talked to him about like he diagnosed me with bipolar. I don't know what I said that made him diagnose me with it, but I've tried to get Adderall a few times in my life. Like I've been to a couple of psychiatrists, and I even asked my friends who had Adderall what they said so that I could say the same thing. And like everyone was like, you're not getting Adderall. And so I just like stopped trying, And I don't need Adderall now. Like it was like when it was cool in school.
Right,
you know what I mean?
A
But
vibe.
like it would be interesting to just talk to him about it and just like see, like tell him like what I have discovered about myself and just watching other people's and hearing everyone else's stories.
Yeah.
What do I have it, and like what is the like scale of it that I have, and like I think the only thing that's detrimental to me mostly is the like 1,000 thoughts a second and like not being able to do it because I'm so overwhelmed by all of the things I have to do that I just don't do anything.
Like the
Yeah.
ADHD paralysis.
Yeah.
Do you feel like, I don't know, would you say that you're like would you say you're like an organized person? I know that sounds super basic and niche compared.
I think I have to be too.
Okay.
Because my job, like being on camera, you have all these like tiny little pieces. Like,
Yeah.
And they cost like $500.
Right.
So you have to have like I have a bunch of Pelican cases back here, and you open them up, and there's like little compartments for every single thing, and like I have to know exactly where everything is, and like when you're on set, you have to like de-rig the camera and build it into something else, like for a different shot.
Damn.
And you have to like put it back together the same way you had it before. And so you need to know where everything is, and like you have to be very delicate with it all, because if you lose something, it's $500.
Right.
Like, that's into like really bad insurance wise,
Oh,
So
totally.
I have to be in that aspect. And then for the rest of my life, yeah, like, but I've been pretty bad lately of like not cleaning anything. Like my room's a mess right now, and like I just like step over things. Like one of my friends like just explained it to me because he has ADHD too, and it's like I think he said something like ADD blindness, where like you just like get used to something being there and you just like step over it.
Yeah.
Oh,
You like
yeah.
bump into something, you know, and like that's
Yeah.
kind of where I've been at recently. Is like in my depression too. I haven't been really like taking care of myself and like cleaning my space to like make me feel better, and so like I've just been ignoring the mess in my room. I cleaned my house today for you guys to.
It looks great.
Yeah, yeah.
Like big shouts.
It was really bad. So like I was able to do that today, which I felt good enough to do that today. But like I just like this whole mess. Like I've just been walking by it for like
Right.
months.
So
Yeah.
let me ask then, if you were to see a psychiatrist or something and they were to diagnose you with ADHD,
Yeah.
how do you think that would change your life?
I would just research it actually, because like what happened when I was diagnosed with bipolar is I didn't know anything about it, and so I researched about it, and then I understood like what my symptoms actually are, and then I was able to like see what my symptoms are when it's happening, and then maneuver from there. So like because I'm listening to your guys' stories, but like it wouldn't be the same as like going in depth researching
So
what would happen to me, you know.
Mm.
So
what stops you from doing that now?
I think it's just because like right now is when I'm considering that I might have it.
Okay. Because like,
It sounds like a pretty recent thing where you're like,
Yeah,
you know?
cause I love the concept of
Yeah.
doing the research.
Well, I just don't
into
want to self-diagnose either, because like I feel like at the same time, like in the scale of ADHD, like just being a human being, you have that. And part of bipolar disorder, I have hypomania, which like the mania is also we have 1,000 thoughts a second. So
Yeah.
it could be my bipolar that I have this issue.
Yeah.
There's some like little quizzes that you can take like online that can help like not necessarily diagnose, but like it's funny every time that I ever take one, I always show it to my wife. I'm like, look, this is. She's like, yep, of course. Like
Oh,
it's
cool.
all it's funny because it's like, do you ever feel like you just don't do anything? It's like, yeah, all the time.
Yeah,
It's
for
great. It's
real.
crazy. Yeah.
Okay,
And
I
so
might do that tonight. We'll
yeah.
And I do want to say, like, obviously self-diagnosing is a dangerous thing.
see. Yeah.
But still doing research into a lot of it, like when I was diagnosed, there was like a little bit of like questions and stuff, but a lot of those questions are questions that they just find from like the National
Yeah.
Institute of Health or
Yeah.
things like that. It's unless you are trying to specifically get diagnosed for the medication type of thing,
Yeah.
I still feel like you can do the research into like, I have these symptoms. Maybe you don't have to say like, oh, I have ADHD. You can say like, I have symptoms of what could be ADHD.
Right.
Doing these things
To help
help
it.
alleviate
Yeah.
it without actually having it.
Yeah.
Because
This is a very new discovery
the,
for me.
the
As I'm
diagnosis,
sitting.
Yeah.
the diagnosis shouldn't be the thing that stops you from trying to learn more about it. Just like
Right.
with bipolar, like
Yeah. That was shocking to me. I didn't know. Like,
Was that recent?
it was in 2020.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about that? Is
Yeah,
that okay? So, like, what was kind of the big? You've probably talked about this in the past, but this is news to me.
Yeah.
What was the moment where you were like, either got diagnosed or you were like, hey, maybe there's something that I'm missing?
Something wrong. Yeah. I was just like crying all the time. And I was fighting with my family. I was fighting with my coworkers. I was fighting with my friends. I like pushed everyone away, to the point where like my family didn't want me around at all. And like I left
Damn.
the family and all this stuff. And so I was just alone, at this point. And I was like, why am I like I was taking antidepressants and I was like, why am I crying? Like this isn't working anymore, so I need to go see somebody.
Yeah.
And when I went and saw the psychiatrist that I go to now, he was like, you need to get off antidepressants immediately because you have bipolar and you cannot be on antidepressants for that. And it was just like such a relief for me to
Yeah.
like have a reason
yeah.
Hell
for
yeah.
why I was feeling that way, and like knowing that I was taking the wrong medication and that was also causing it to be worse for me.
Yeah.
And then understanding like what was now happening to me, because it's like on average, like when you're 27 years old, you start getting bipolar. Like
Oh yeah, dude.
that's the age range. And that's what happened to me. I turned 27 and it just immediately started happening. And like, I'm super grateful that I now am able to like catch myself in which like depression or manic episode I'm in right now.
Yeah.
And like, it was really just eye-opening to me that I was going in there being like, I'm depressed, like what's going on? And
Yeah.
he told me that I had bipolar, and I was like, okay, like I don't even know what this means.
Right.
Like I thought that it was like some crazy thing that like, oh no, I'm gonna be like psychotic for the rest of my life, and like it's really not that way.
Is it something that you feel like has been like manageable, that you're like, I understand this now, I can like manage it?
I understand it now, but I have not been able to manage it well.
Okay.
I think it's because I don't have a routine. And
Right.
like that's also what my psychiatrist told me too. He was like, you are completely screwed because you not only have bipolar, but your job is bipolar.
Yeah,
Because
completely.
I never have the same job twice. Like
Yeah.
it's all different people. I have different bosses every week. I have different
Jeez.
crews every week. I have to meet strangers like every
Oh
week.
my gosh.
And I go into like people's offices. Like I do different people's jobs every week too.
Yeah.
I do like a 9 to 5 like corporate office thing, and then I'm playing golf the next day. Like it's just such a like up and down situation
Yeah.
that it's really hard to get a routine. And like all the studies that I've researched is like the best way to manage bipolar is routine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just kind of like, I've just been not having a routine, and so that's why I'm trying to like start with the sun and like going
Yeah.
outside and like trying it all, because I just really haven't cared for myself in a long time, and it's like obviously super detrimental to my life,
Yeah.
but I'm finally able to like want to care about it.
Is your current work situation something that you like really enjoy, or is it like something really stressful, or like?
It's really stressful, but I really enjoy it. Like,
Yeah.
I want to work on movies mostly, and like
Yeah.
narrative TV shows, and those are usually like 3 to 6 months long. And so that would be a Monday through Friday,
Yeah.
12 hours a day though, instead of like
Right.
9 to 5 time frame. But I would have weekends off,
Yeah.
and like that would be crucial.
Yeah.
But we don't have that out here yet.
Yeah.
We have like a couple that come in, but it's only a couple of weeks usually. But when I get a TV show like that, I get like a routine, and then we go in every day at the same time.
Yeah.
It's like, thank God for this, but then it ends. And then I'm back to the like 1 day on this and 3
Jeez.
days on the next one kind of thing. So that's my goal, is to get up to the bigger shows so that I can have the Monday through Fridays.
That sounds so stressful. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It's funny because routine is really important. I never really realized it. So for those that don't know, I did music and I wanted to do the music thing. And somehow the wind just kind of blew me to doing real estate. Anyway, if you want to buy or sell real estate, let me know. I can hook it up. And you know, I kind of almost mourned to that, because I was like, it was something I was really passionate about. But I kind of realized, you know, that was God, universe, or whatever, like leading me to a life to where I can have a routine, because I probably would not have thrived in something like that. Because like that sounds crazy. Like if you're you know golfing one day and you're doing someone else's job and stuff like
Yeah.
that sounds really intense.
It is.
It would be hard. It would be hard to manage.
Yeah.
You know, taking care of yourself, doing routine and everything.
I do a lot of crime TV too.
Oh,
where
right on.
I'm like interviewing people that have like their daughter got murdered, and like
Oh my
they found the
gosh.
killer, and like I'm just watching these people cry because like they finally found the killer like 50 years later, and they finally get closure, and I'm just like,
You're shitting.
like their whole life story, and it happens like 3 times a month, you know. Yeah, like I was just on one that this lady, sorry to like say all this stuff, but she was murdered when she was 22 years old. She just moved to Hawaii
Damn.
and was murdered, and like she had like 10 siblings, and they all like couldn't find who did it. Like she
Right.
just moved there, and this stranger killed their sister, and like what are they supposed to do about that? And I'm just like taking all of it in every single time it happens. But I try to change my mindset on it of like, I get to tell their story
Yeah.
for them and
Yeah.
allow them that closure. And so that's what gets me through it. But even on top of everything else in the like my schedule, like that's heavy.
That's super heavy.
Super heavy. So like
Yeah.
it affects me in that way too.
When it comes to the schedule stuff, like being in a similar industry, the way that I've been kind of able to incorporate somewhat of a routine is like, it doesn't have to be starting at a specific time,
Yeah.
but giving yourself the time to do it. So even if like three days you have a call time of 6 a.m. and then 3 days you have 9 p.m. type of thing. Either way, an hour or two before, you give yourself time to do some sort of familiar type of thing. So if it's a 6 a.m. call time, if you have to wake up at 5 a.m. instead, just to be able to get the familiarity stuff going, that could help with the base level stuff.
See, my problem is lack of sleep.
Yeah.
Though,
Yeah.
like I don't like if it's a really early call time, I will just stay up so I don't sleep through it. And then if it's like a 9 p.m. call, like I stayed up all night before for the 6 a.m. time, and I work 15 hours, and I get home at like 4 a.m. and I sleep all day long until 8 p.m.
Yeah.
to then go to the next one. You know?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's intense.
It's hard to.
That's
It's
intense.
been really hard to
Which
figure it out.
those
And I
days-
know there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
But I just haven't. done it.
Low key, like, so I have 4 kids and sleep is a disaster. That sounds way worse than like way worse, right?
Well, that's why I haven't been able to have kids too, is because I don't have any time or structure or anything. Like,
Yeah.
I'm trying to get up to the bigger movies so that I can have the Monday through Fridays and have like some sort of structure and get my
Yeah.
life manageable
Yeah.
so that I can then have a family one day.
Man.
Like, that's been detrimental to my life as well.
What would it take to get up to that point?
Probably at this moment move.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't want to move, so I've
We
been
could do
trying
it.
to.
We do it.
I've been trying to build up the industry out here, and it's working, but it's taking a few more years than I thought
Right.
it would.
Right.
But it'll happen.
Yeah,
It'll
absolutely.
happen. You know.
100%.
Do you have any more questions about ADHD or OCD?
I don't.
No.
No.
Okay. Do you have any final thoughts on it?
Take care of yourself, eat good food, drink water, walk.
Yeah.
If you're not in a place that celebrates you, go to that place because you have all kinds of talents and abilities, and there's something out there for you that is perfectly suited for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
what
a
I would
perfect way to
say,
end it.
right?
I love it.
so much.
Awesome. Well,
Thank
thank you.
so much.
Thanks for having me on. You guys are great people. You guys are doing the Lord's work. It's
Thank
great.
you.
Awesome.
Yeah. It was great to see you again.
Yeah, same.